I don't really know what my life would be like. And I don't know whether I would be content with the life that I had. I mean, obviously you make the most of whatever life you're given,
Yeah.
but I think coming to New York and to the US created an opportunity and a shift in the dynamic of not just my family, but the relationship that I had with myself and the level of openness that I was able to achieve in my mind and in my emotions, in my spirit. That it was because of this environment that I was able to make this shift in who I am and in what I'm doing. Um, and not to say that that couldn't have happened anywhere else, but I think just if you know anything about New York, you just know that it's a melting pot. And it's the
Yes.
thing that they say about it is if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere,
And it's the
right?
truth, I think.
Yeah. So I definitely think that I found my concrete pastures, but part of
Born and raised in the chasing a better life. Story of them in the concrete pastures.
Hello, family. Welcome back to Concrete Pastures. I am Nancy Mlemwa-Sisi. Being an immigrant has been one of the most challenging and extraordinary experiences of my life. It inspired me to create a space, a platform for me to reach out to my fellow immigrants and dreamers. The goal is for us to be able to deconstruct what the view of being an immigrant is. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're going to be unlocking the laughs, the joys, and we're going to be unlocking the bravery that being an immigrant brings. As you watch this, please make sure you click the subscribe button. As you listen, let's make sure we're clicking the bell. This way you don't miss anything Concrete Pastures. Thank you so much again. And today I have an amazing brother from Ghana. He's my first Ghanaian uh, guest. So hopefully he's my lucky charm. We get more Ghanaian. We will probably talk about jollof rice because
oh,
everybody from up north
of
and
course.
they talk about their jollof rice and their competition. We'll probably touch on that.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, our subject today is something that actually matters to both of us. And I think a lot of you guys are going to resonate with what we're about to talk about. And would love actually to hear from you and what you related to. We want to hear your reviews. But our guest today, his name is Richard Hatchman. I just interviewed his wife, by the way. um, like I said, he is Ghanaian born, New York based creative director and content producer. Storytelling is at the root of everything he does. His entire life has been defined by a quest to find and tell the truth with a deep sense of purpose. I love that. He is also the founder of the Board Brand, a marketing consulting agency primarily for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Please welcome Richard. Hi.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful. I appreciate
Oh,
that.
thank you. Thank you. Oh, goodness. I'm so grateful that you're able to join me. I know we got in touch. We've been trying to get the time on, but finally we are here.
Yes.
Season 2. So exciting.
Wonderful. This is a great opportunity, and I really love the idea behind the podcast, the kinds of people that you're bringing on. I mean, it's so needed. People need to hear these stories, and they just need to know that we're out here and we've got something to say. So I appreciate that.
So exciting. So exciting. Um, for starters, we normally start with you telling us what got you from Ghana to the US and what was life like there? Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so a little bit of an interesting backstory is my parents, or my mother rather, was she worked for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Ghana. And,
Mm,
by virtue of working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, she, rubbed shoulders and, was in touch with a lot of people who were either working at embassies in different countries or just exposure to lots of people from different places.
yeah.
So, by virtue of working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, she eventually became a diplomat. And so that allowed her to travel and be posted to other places. And so naturally, when you're posted to other places, you bring your whole family along. So
Yes.
that's kind of how it worked out.
Nice.
At the very beginning, we were posted to what was then Czechoslovakia, the Czech Republic in the
Oh,
EU. And this was in the 80s. And so, we went between the Czech Republic and Ghana for a few years. And then somewhere, I think it was 1996, is then when my mom got posted to New York City. And ever since then, I've been going back and forth and living in the US in various places. So yeah, but it was my mom's job that got us over here.
wow. Beautiful. So I wanted then my next question of you adjusting. You already had adjusted many years ago.
I
You
mean,
finally
I
moved.
I wouldn't say that because I was young. I was still very young. Like I was 2 years old the first time that we moved to the Czech Republic. And then
Uh-huh.
we went back to Ghana. So it was kind of like, Ghana was still very much where I had a lot of my formative years. And so coming to the US, that's my second real posting,
Yeah.
in the family. There was a bit of a shock and a bit of an adjustment that happened because I think I was around like 11 or 12 at that time.
Mm,
And so most of what I knew was within the Ghana and an African context. And so you can only imagine, this 12-year-old boy landing in New York. And, I think maybe it was like early evening when we landed. And so
yeah.
you step out and then you kind of just see the skyline and like nothing you've ever seen before, just buildings huge, tall, reaching the sky. And
Yeah.
I hadn't seen pictures before or videos or anything like that. And maybe I'd seen some video or movies on TV, but it just I didn't make the connection. And so it was just everything was bigger. And so it was very surprising. And I think it was also, we came when it was autumn, so it was a little bit chilly. And so I remember my mom had brought some jackets some coats to the airport for us because we were just in our summer clothes from Ghana. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh my
That
God.
takes me back.
Wow. This is why I love this show because this is where I get to, because we don't get a chance to reflect on how things happened and how we
Yeah, yeah.
arrived. Where did you guys go?
hmm
Which borough did you guys go to?
we lived in Manhattan, so we
Oh,
actually
excuse
weren't that.
me.
No, listen, it's not even like that. It
For
was
anybody
like,
who's listening, Manhattan is one of the most expensive places you
I
can ever
mean,
live.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but I have to clarify that most of the diplomats who end up in New York end up in Manhattan because
They do.
that's where all the work happens. That's where all
Mm,
the embassies are. That's where the UN is. And so your country usually
I'm
has an
thinking about my
apartment.
money back home now. I'm thinking about it. Mm,
you know so yeah, but it was by virtue of the job that we were living in Manhattan. Definitely no means of our own that we were there.
no, that's the beauty though. I mean, your mom definitely and you guys deserve it. Because I mean, you don't get where you are just for free.
Oh
You
yeah.
you earn it. So you guys earned it. And that's the
Mhm.
beauty of being a diplomat. I always admired. I had when I first came here, one of my friends was diplomat's daughter, and they get paid monthly, um,
Mhm.
as well as much as their parents. They also get paid, and I used to go to their house in Queens. It was beautiful,
Yeah.
really beautiful, and I was just like, but it was all really nice, really, really nice. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Um, so what was your first job here?
Oh man. So my first job, fast forward all these years, my first job was as a graphic designer in New York City.
Wow, fancy. So you
Um,
can't even say like washing plates in the
listen,
kitchen.
I worked hard for that.
Oh, so
You
you
know,
went to school and then
yeah, listen, we're skipping a whole thing. That was like my life was up and down, and so, but finally after my university, I went to university in Reading, Pennsylvania, actually, which is another state here in the US.
yeah.
And I studied communications and digital media. And I also did a minor in theater. So I was very busy, like engaged in my education, and I was
Yeah.
working three jobs at the same time, but it was just like I guess those might have been my first jobs if I want to correct myself. I was working in my undergrad, but I didn't consider that like my first job. It was just like you do what you have to do to like pay for your needs while you're in school and everything
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, I mean, if we're talking about that first job, those first three jobs, the first one of them was I worked as an assistant in a computer lab, helping people like figure out how to print documents or like work with certain applications and stuff
Wow.
like that. I worked late nights at a TV station. If you ever see commercials come on the TV, I was that person who was doing it at like
Oh,
midnight.
nice.
But back in the day, it was different. There were different, video files that you had to press the right button at the right time so that the next commercial would come on. The next commercial, it was not like automated or anything.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
that
So,
was
okay, so this
interesting.
time around they are automated, they're timed at this time.
Oh yeah. There's all software that controls all of that stuff, but I had to manually do that stuff at the local TV station. Um,
Wow, that's impressive.
yeah, it was fun, but it was hard because like again, it was around 11 o'clock midnight, and I'm a student, so
And
it's
then
like
you go to
you got to
work,
get up and
to
go to class
school.
the next day. Yeah. So, and then my third job while I was in school was I was working for the college's admissions office. And so there's a long story there, but the long and short of it is I got a scholarship, and I really liked the counselor who helped me get that scholarship. So when I got to the university, I said, hey, I want to help. I want to give back. I want to do something. And so they said, okay, come work at the admissions office. You can give new students and new international students the tour of the campus. You can tell them all about it and stuff like that. So I was an
Oh, nice.
ambassador for the campus and for the
Nice.
school. So those were my first three jobs. And then when I graduated, then I became a graphic designer.
Wow. Beautiful story. Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot.
No, it's a lot. We all put in time, and it's all about managing your time, especially as an immigrant. You
Exactly.
have to manage your time. You cannot say, oh, I just have to study and that's it. But meanwhile,
Hmm.
you have to pay for your phone. You have to,
Yeah, exactly.
you have to eat.
Exactly. Food, your cell phone bill so that you can call your parents back home, your textbooks, your clothing, these are the
Oh my
essentials.
God, talking about textbooks. Do you know
Hmm.
one textbook 1 year? Because when I first started my school, I was doing nursing. So to take one of the clinicals, it was not even one of the clinicals. It's like pre-clinicals,
Yeah.
anatomy and fees.
Okay.
$200 for a
Those
book.
books are not cheap. They are not cheap. It's crazy. And you as a student, you're trying to pay for that? Oh my goodness.
$200. I'm like, and there's one and two. So I'm like,
Yeah, it's crazy to think, and that, I mean, it's still the case, but now it's better because like you have the internet and there's so many resources and stuff like that.
some of these books, I
But
think
I
they're
remember,
purposely
this is a
not
little
putting
bit
it
of
online.
a side story. Yeah, very true. Very true. It reminds me, so after I had finished my university, I actually went back to Ghana for 1 year,
Yeah.
because we didn't have the money to afford, oh, sorry, after my high school. after my high school, which is like my senior secondary school,
Yeah.
I went back to Ghana for 1 year because we didn't have the money to afford college for me to go to at the time. And so
Wow.
while I was in Ghana for that year, I got accepted into one of the universities there. And so what I'm reminded of is the textbook situation there. Very different, like the textbooks that you get, it's not a textbook. It's, pieces of paper that have been Xeroxed and copied from an actual textbook, and then they pass that around to everybody because the textbooks are too expensive, right? And so the program or the school, what the department will just get a few of those, and then they'll make multiple copies and then just share that amongst everybody, and that's how we
Do
learn
you
stuff.
pay for that Xerox copy?
You do pay a little bit for the Xerox copy, but nowhere near anything that you
Compared.
pay for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, like I felt the pain of paying the $200 and then the next semester, same thing. I was just like,
Yeah, that's tough. That's so tough.
it's a lot. But yeah, but at least here people have the luxury of financial aid if you can, but
Exactly.
there's a whole lot of complications on those. But that'll be another topic that we can do another time. For anybody
Yeah.
who is interested, no, like serious. People would love to know how they can go to school for free and get
Oh
books for
yeah.
free.
100%.
I was one of those people, but I would never qualify ever.
Yeah.
So one of the topics that I wanted to talk about was culture. And in my opinion, like honestly, culture, I think in a way gives us an identity. And in a lot of ways, it shapes the way who we become. And if you allow it to, because you see something that we learn as soon as we are born. So depending on how your parents are, depending like what culture they're coming from, so they'll invert that on you as well. I wanted to have this conversation with you on how culture from Ghana and the American culture has affected how you are as a man, as a Black man in America and an African.
Yeah, it's a very great question.
I know it's loaded.
It's a great question, and there's so much to say there. So I hope I can be as concise and like really hone in on those insightful bits as possible. The first thing I have to say is I have to acknowledge that I have lived an extremely privileged life compared to most Ghanaians and most Africans. So I just want to honor and respect that, because there might be people watching out there who are like, oh, but you live in the US, you got a job there, all of this stuff, you're living good. So I don't understand why you're complaining.
Yeah.
So please just
it's
understand.
Not really complaining. I think no, because I want for people to acknowledge, because the thing is, I was listening to something and they're like, oh, people, when you get rich, people think that your problems go away. It's just you get a different type of problems.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Just because we're in America, we have jobs.
Yeah.
Or wherever we are outside our countries. It doesn't mean we don't have problems. We are entitled to complain.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, taking it back to your question though, I mean, obviously these are two very different cultures, being in Ghana and being in the US, and my experience of Ghanaian culture is a little limited because I was there and then I left and then I went back and then so I go back and forth. And so there isn't a continuity of that experience. But what I will say is that, back to the beginning of my story, some of my formative years in primary school were in Ghana. And, it's my parents, they've had the privilege and exposure of living in foreign countries, but when they're back home, they are very local, and they don't mess around. It's not like, oh, you enjoyed Western life, so now you can live your Western life here in Ghana. No. So, I grew up very much in a typical Ghanaian household, going to school very typically. And it was a lot of like, please understand that we're not well off. We are okay. And we're hardworking, and everything that you do, you have to be committed to. You have to have discipline.
Mm.
especially as a man, as a boy and a man in Ghana and in Africa. There's this sense of pride and that you need to eventually become the breadwinner of the family, and so you have certain responsibilities. You have to conduct yourself in a certain way, certain mannerisms. Everything from the kind of job that you eventually get. The jobs, the doctor, the lawyer, banker, engineer.
Of course.
That's where your life is heading. So get it straight. None of this other stuff like you want to be an actor. No. We don't do that.
That's not a real job. What's wrong with you?
No. You can't provide for your family on that, right? So go to a good school, get a good job, take care of your family. Those are the core. And I mean, let's be honest, those are universal values, right? But
Yeah.
somehow they feel very, particular in our home countries, right?
Any country in Africa, man, they
yeah.
can find the same. Oh my God.
Exactly. And it was also quite unique because in my family, it's a family of 3 boys, and so it's
Wow.
like boy after boy after boy, and so the pressure, the expectations, the high hopes that our parents have for us, they really instill that, and it's like you can't afford to mess up. You have to be on the straight and narrow, and you have to be able to provide for your family when you grow up, and also provide for your parents, because we put in a lot of hard work. You are an investment.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the mentality, the culture, that I grew up on there. But also, again, I also want to share that Ghana is an amazing place. Like, we have a lot of fun. We're very personable people, and
Yeah.
we enjoy getting to know people, and we enjoy laughing, and just the quality of life is very important to us. So I had a lot of beautiful experiences as well. I have a big extended family. I have something like 21 cousins. I have 8 aunts and uncles or stuff so it's a big family, and those are just the people who are directly related to me by blood,
Yeah.
not the
You can't even imagine
you
who
know
else is related to you aside from just the
yeah,
8 aunties and
exactly.
uncles. And yeah, my grandmother had 8 children, and that was just like, first of all, my mind was like, how do you continue to have 8 kids?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's a lot. And actually, I misspoke. My grandmother actually had 12 children, and just over the years, they've been passing away, unfortunately. But yeah.
Yeah, same thing for my grandmother.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's it's a beautiful big family, and now a lot of them are also like living abroad and immigrants in various places. But we all came from the same place, and we all understand the same struggles, the same joys, and everything like that. So take that, and then take this US culture. I mean, I don't even know, honestly, I don't even know how you would define US culture, to be honest. It's something completely different, and I'll just share a little bit of my personal experience, because
Yeah.
it's a learning curve, right? It's like I came as a child, and so I had the benefit of like being able to adjust over time, right? And I don't think a lot of people get that. They have to kind of just fall into it and then just pick stuff up so quickly. But I got to gradually sort of develop and grow into it. But like, I remember being in 6th grade or class 6, and the first thing that hit me was just like how mean children can be, like the bullying here. Like, yeah, we have bullying at home, but it's a little different here, because it's like there's a racial component to it. Oh, your skin is so dark, and what is this accent? What is this heavy accent? I can't even understand what you're saying, so obviously now my accent is just like American accent
completely
at this point,
different.
right?
Yeah.
But when I first got here, yeah, it was very different.
Wow.
So yeah, but being a kid in school, it was a huge adjustment, because it was just like I didn't understand, and nobody really took the time to explain to me like, you're different, and this difference, it can either be a strength or it can be a weakness, right? And the way in which that it affects you is just how other people talk about you, whether it's to you or behind you. and how you deal with that. And honestly, maybe for the first year, I was completely ignorant. I didn't know that they were making fun of me, because I was like,
It's
okay,
not something that you were
my
used
skin
to.
is dark. Yeah, okay. Yes, my skin is dark. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
My accent is different from yours. Okay, I understand. Meanwhile, they're trying to make fun of me. So it wasn't until later that I realized that, oh, because they're not used to that, they find it funny and they use it to shame people. And, it took me a while to understand that, but it was a huge adjustment, right? So that's just one of the things that, like, really, in terms of a culture shift and a culture shock, that
Yeah.
eventually I realized. And and as you get older, the kids become a little bit meaner.
Yes. No, for sure. Yeah.
And then it starts to become like a materialism sort of thing, where it's like, oh yeah, I have the brand name clothes, and to this day I don't wear brand name clothes, because it affected me so much
The
back then, that,
trauma.
like,
The
yeah,
trauma.
like, I didn't
Yeah.
come from a rich family, so we're not buying all these brand name clothing to show off in school. Like, we're wearing regular things from Walmart, Target, these generic
Yes.
stores and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they're coming with, like, the Gucci or whatever it was,
Because you went
and
to school in Manhattan.
yeah, well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, a different world altogether.
It's a different world. Oh my God. I'm so sorry that you went through that.
It's okay. I mean, this is
Wow.
part of the journey, right?
Yes.
And
Wow.
and I should say, my story goes even further and much more beyond that, because I didn't always stay and live in New York.
Yeah.
I stayed there for 4 years. At which point, and this becomes a very interesting conversation, because talk about the difference in culture, talk about the difference in upbringing. So after the 4 years in New York, my mom was getting posted to another country, right? She's a
Mm.
diplomat. She was being posted to Kosovo, I think, at the time. And so at that point, everyone in the family had a decision to make, right? Because um, being posted to Kosovo was a little bit different than, like, being posted to New York. And at the time, it was very, I don't think it was war torn, but there was a lot of, like, civil strife going on there, and a lot of, like, tension. And so it wasn't necessarily the safest and the best environment for your family.
Yeah.
And so we kind of all had a decision to make, which was, are we, the kids, going to be able to finish our education in the United States, or are we going to go to Ghana? Or are there some other options? So I told you I have two older brothers. They're both older, by a couple of years. And so one of them was in college, and the other one was finishing up high school. And then I was here in my primary school going into high school. And so
Wow.
we were all in different levels. And
Yeah.
so the decisions that needed to be made for each of us was different, right? And so the crazy thing that ended up happening was, okay, my oldest brother, he went to Canada to finish up his schooling there. My middle brother went to another state. He went to Maryland to finish up his schooling there in college. And then there was me, and my parents, I don't really understand how I got to have this choice, but they gave me the choice of go home to Ghana with your dad, or go live with one of your aunties in another state in the US. And
Mm.
I didn't know the huge significance of these choices that I was being offered. But at the time, I guess I had a little bit of, like, a understanding that it might be beneficial for me to finish my education in the US, because maybe that degree will go further
Yeah.
than going back to Ghana and getting a degree there or something like that.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, I'll go live with one of my aunties. And so I went all the way to the other side of the US, to California, to do my high school. And so that's where I finished my high school. But even that was a very different situation. And I this is probably where I won't go too deep into the personal story, because it is a little traumatic. I had a bit of a traumatic experience there. But the long and short of it was that was a different American and US cultural environment than a Manhattan in New York was,
Yeah.
right? That was a little bit more chill, laid back, relaxed, like a lot of people, like, trying to understand you. The kids were a little bit more like inclusive and like,
Oh, nice.
yeah, because over there in New York, the schools that I was going to, well, the first schools that I was going to was a lot of like rich kids, and like
Yes.
from countries where they're mostly white, right?
Yeah.
And in California, the school that I was going to there was a lot of like mixed kids and immigrants from like China, Korea, Japan, Mexico, stuff like that. So
Mhm.
it felt easier to sort of blend in and to make friends because they all kind of had similar like immigrant stories, living in the US. And so we kind of bonded over that. And so needless to say, I really thrived there, even though I did go through some really hard times there as well.
Yeah.
But it was like I felt like I was learning America through these experiences, right?
Mm.
And there's a saying that I don't know if many people have heard, but it's from a song I think that got mentioned in a speech, which is, live in New York once, but leave before it makes you too hard, and then live in California once, but leave before it makes you too soft. And those two things are very true. I've experienced it, and those cultures are very indicative of that as well. So yeah, it's
time for me to migrate to
listen,
California.
I loved my experience there. And you talked to my wife Erica, I don't know if she mentioned this, but like based off of that, I'm convinced that like we're gonna spend part of our life living in California, or like at least going back and
I
forth,
know.
because I
She
love
told
that.
me the 552.
Yeah, I because I loved my experience out there. But yes, you can't stay out there too long, otherwise you enjoy it too much that you start to forget yourself, that kind of thing. So
Listen, even the way they talk is like so relaxed. In New York, it's like speed up the process.
Yeah, I mean, because it's different. Like New York is all about business, hustle, make money, and California is more about like enjoy, relax. You're here, sunshine, ocean, it's very different.
For anybody who's listening, California is the place. New York, if you want to make lots of money, you come here, but it's gonna be very busy.
You got to make a lot of money in either place that you go. It just depends on the lifestyle you want.
It's true. That's true. That's true. I mean, you got the Hollywood stars in California.
That's right.
Them in New York. So, hey, yeah. But wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, with the trauma that you experienced, have you like done anything about it? Have you? Because I know when you experience a lot as a child, it goes with you. From my experience, like I had to get over, I was bullied in school, primary school. So I had to the only way I got over my bullying, I beat up my bully.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, kudos on the one hand, but on the other hand, you beat up somebody.
Kids, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, the thing is, so I'll tell you the story. I was moved from one class so our school was from A to E. So like second grade was like A, B, C, D, all of second grades.
Okay.
So I was moved from one class to the other. I go to the class that I was moved from, the two. I sit down. I don't know if you have this in Ghana. We have like a pencil case that is made out of metal.
Yes, we have that. No.
So this girl tells me, so I sit down next to her. She tells me, oh, you dropped all my pencils. So it was like, 20 pencils that I dropped. So I was like, that thing, if it falls, it makes a lot of noise.
You hear it.
And like our flooring is cement.
Cement, concrete.
I'm like, so she was bigger than me, like in structure, because I've always been skinny. So she tells me, she's like, I'm going to tell, by then I was living with my grandmother, I'm going to tell your grandmother. And I was terrified, out of my mind. She's like, I'm going to tell your grandmother you lost all my 20 pencils. So I said, okay. Months, like fast forwarding, like we went all the way to sixth grade. She was still bullying me and telling me, I'm going to tell your mom, I'm going to tell you who. Like, I remember my dad came one time at school because I never used to live with him. So he was passing by, he saw me in school, he gave me like 50 kwacha at the time. So I went to give it to she saw me receive the money, and she was
Okay.
just like, I need that money so you could pay off
Uh,
everything that you owe me. So I gave it to her, and then she had the nerve to come back again to start to bully me. So we had
oh.
this thing in school.
Mhm.
Anybody you had beef with, you would go to this section. This is so bad. Like to do a scoring thing. So if
Yeah.
whoever goes down, like we'll do like wrestling type of thing. So
Okay.
whoever goes down, that's the winner. So I said, yeah, you and I are gonna go. So we went,
Oh my
and I
goodness.
won, and that was the end of it. And then
Wow.
years later, we became friends.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, years later, we became
Oh,
friends. But yeah.
yeah.
Sorry,
Oh
I
my
digress. I
goodness.
needed to tell you. But that
No.
affected me so much. Like
Hmm.
everywhere I went, I'm just like looking over my shoulder. Even when I went to a new school, I'm just like, gotta be careful not to drop anybody's stuff.
Hmm.
But how have you dealt with that, trauma? I later experienced another trauma in my years, but yeah,
Yeah.
I had to deal with that later.
Yeah, and I'll start at the end because I think it's good for people to hear the positive, right, before I
Yeah.
talk about some of the negative. And so, a lot of the trauma that I've experienced in my life is centered around my family and my upbringing within my family. It's very little of it is external, like
Yeah.
you're bullying, for example. Very little of it is that. But I will start by saying that, my family and I are in great terms now. Like,
Yeah.
the various people that like I had issues with or that made my upbringing a little bit like trying and difficult. So, and it's just one of those things that like as you're a kid, there needs to be a little bit of grace and understanding for the fact that kids just don't know what's happening around them.
Yes.
And so adults really need to step up and like cater to like helping kids, supporting kids, being loving and nurturing. And sometimes that in our culture, that really isn't prioritized, right?
Yep.
And so, fast forward now to being an adult and feeling like I can communicate about these things. Like I've confronted some of them. I've talked about some of the issues that I felt I was experiencing. And, sometimes the most frustrating thing, but also the most reassuring thing is just like the adults going, I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And part of you wants to go, how could you not know? And
Yeah.
then the other part is like, well, okay, maybe that's why you didn't do anything about it. So like I have to forgive you kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's been a long journey. It's been a very long journey. Some of the trauma, it's just things like that. I remember instances where, and as privileged as we were, there were times when I was really struggling. Like I was never an A+ student,
Yeah.
like I was never like top of my class or anything like that. That was like my middle brother, but I was never that kind of kid. I was always average, and so I always struggled. And the expectations and the pressure that gets put on you about grades, and when the report card comes home, ooh, like if you have a bad report card, you can expect that you're getting a beating, something like that. It's not like what happened here, how can we do better next time? No, you get beat. And that's just the way it is. That's how you grow up, right? And then you just hopefully that beating like pressures you into like studying harder or doing something. It's not ideal. Sometimes it works for certain people, other times it doesn't work. For me, discipline and that kind of physical discipline has never been a good motivator. It's always made me more closed off. That's just the kind of child that I was. And I've grown up, that to your point, that kind of stuff stays with you. And so I grew up with a lot of that, right? And so in situations as an adult, whether it's like how do you make new friends or how do you like go into a new job with authority, like how do you do any of these things without like closing yourself off, and like anytime somebody like gives you small criticism, you become very defensive and like closed off and like shy, or like you get defensive. All this kind of stuff, it comes from those early days, those very beginnings, and
Wow.
as we've talked about, like especially being a man in our culture and not being like the alpha male, like not always being the A+ student, not always getting like the job that is expected of you, not earning a certain amount, or like even to the point of like not being a womanizer, right? That's something that's can be frowned upon, like, oh,
Yes. Yeah.
you don't have swagger, like, what's all of this.
Yeah.
So that stuff stays with you and it affects you in various areas of your life. And so thank goodness that like years later I've now found therapy, and I'm in therapy, and I'm talking about the issues that that weighed on me growing up. And even the idea of Black men, anybody in therapy,
Therapy.
honestly, is so foreign to people. Like, why are you going to tell all your personal business to a stranger?
Yep.
On top of that, you're paying for it. It's like
Yeah.
it's so foreign to people, and the other part of that that's foreign is that, you know in our culture, like, to resolve almost all our issues, we rely on our faith and our religion, right? So whether you're Islamic, whether you're Christian, like,
Yeah.
that's, you turn to that first. You're having problems with your family, okay, you go see your priest, or your the person that is the head of your church or your clergy,
Yeah.
to help walk you through the issues.
Yeah.
You're having issues with finances or whatever, okay, go to God, pray, go to church every Sunday, like, just keep the faith, and eventually things will work out. And um I think there's merit, and I think there's a lot of wonderful, value in that. But
Yep.
I think there's also a little bit of a lack of accountability in that, right? In taking control of your own journey, or whether it's your own healing from your
Yeah.
traumas, or
Hmm.
going out there and seeking new opportunities to make more money. Like, you can't just throw everything to God and then continue to do the same things that you do all the time, right? It doesn't work that
I
way.
mean,
So
they even says God helps those who help themselves.
yeah, exactly. Right. So, part of that is, okay, let me talk to a therapist, somebody
Yeah.
who's professional and whose responsibility it is to understand how to bring up those things in me and help me navigate them, but then also help me to heal, and then to be able to move forward in such a way that if those issues start to come up and to trigger bad reactions in me, that I will be capable of being able to address them myself. So I become self-sufficient, self-reliant. And not only that, when I become self-sufficient, self-reliant, and I love myself, I'm happy with who I am,
Yeah.
I can help others much better,
Yeah.
you know?
That's very
So
powerful.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to come to that. And, unfortunately, one of the consequences of not being on that journey soon enough is I was previously married and now I'm divorced. So I have one ruined, I wouldn't say ruined. I have one marriage that just didn't work out because I
Yeah.
wasn't where I needed to be,
Yeah.
and so things like that, it starts at home and it starts with the children. So that's very important for people to remember.
Oh my God, that's so powerful. And so many people are going to relate to you. So many people, because our culture, even for, like I was telling you before we started, you guys are applauded for so many things that women already do. Like I
Mm-hmm.
told you, my one time we had a funeral, and I think it was somebody died that was close related to my father, and everybody was applauding. Oh my God, your father was crying so much.
Mm-hmm.
He's really grieving. He's really, and there were so many women already feeling the same pain that he's feeling,
Yeah.
crying,
Yeah.
but all of those was not acknowledged except him,
Yeah.
because he was crying the
Yeah.
most, or whatever. Like everybody else was crying, including my grandmother was there.
It's
As
ridiculous.
soon as they see a man do something,
Mm-hmm.
almost the same thing. Like if you sweep the house, they'd say.
Wow. Wow.
Even when you clean, oh my gosh. One of
Yeah.
my, even one of my my brothers, from another mother posted a post It's like, oh, when when a man cleans the house, they say he's been bewitched. But this is the same thing.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's so crazy, right?
It's
I mean,
crazy. Like you guys get applauded for so much. And
and,
then
and
even
here's
with
the funny
therapy,
thing.
forget it. Like even with therapy, right now, everybody's just like, why would he even go to therapy and talk about his business?
Yeah, here's the crazy part about that, right? I remember as a kid, there's one specific instance that I remember that my grandmother died.
Mm,
And this was the first time that I remember like sobbing, like just like crying so heavily. And I
yeah.
must have been, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old or something like that.
Mm,
And, I didn't even know her that well. But like, I think it was my first real funeral or something like that. And it
yeah.
was someone that I had known or had been exposed to.
Yeah.
And we were in the car driving home, and I'm just sobbing, crying in the backseat with my brothers. And it's like after maybe like 5 minutes, like, okay, that's enough, that's enough. Like,
Yeah.
why my grandmother just died. Like, I get that, like, and my parents weren't crying as much, or at least at the time they weren't crying as much. And I don't know whether it's like, oh,
Oh
they're
my
trying
God.
to be strong for you or something.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's so crazy to me that especially boys are chastised or are made to feel bad for
Yeah.
showing these emotions at an early age. These emotions are beaten out of you at a young age. And then when you're an adult, oh wow,
Yes.
what is
Yes.
happening here?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thankful in some respects because, like I said, I come from a family of three boys, and my mom was like the champion of the family. She's the way our tribe is very matrilineal, so women, like, they run everything, right?
Gotcha.
And so it's funny because, like, the three of us, we grew up doing all of those things. Like, my Saturday morning, my mom's like, okay, you get the broom, you get the mop, you get the this, we're gonna clean this
Mm,
whole house. So okay, I'm starting to cook, you're helping me cut this, da 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 da. So we got a bit of a different experience than I think most
wow.
guys did in their upbringing, which was like, it's okay for you to do these things, and in fact, you need to know how to do these things. This is the twist to the story. You need to do these things. You need to know how to do these things until you get married, and then your wife should do it for you. So on the one hand, it's good that you're learning these skills, but when you get married, then you can just relax.
That's how they teach you guys back home. And it's just like the boys sit back. And
Mhm,
the thing is, I think even if she had girls, maybe two
mhm.
girls or one girl, I think the girls would have been doing the
Would be
most
doing
of
the
the work.
work. Yeah,
Yeah, the majority of the
exactly.
work. And then you
Mhm.
guys would just be chilling and
Yeah,
because you don't
yeah,
need to learn this, because why are you stopping at the time you married?
yeah, exactly.
And being an immigrant, everybody's busy. We all
Yeah,
have to contribute.
yeah.
Cleaning, income, everything.
Yeah, I think it's so crazy, that this is how we're raising our boys and our men, and so, like, any little show of affection, emotion, or just like wanting to be like self-aware and go to therapy is like so foreign to people that it's like, we have to decide whether it's a good thing or it's like completely like irrational. It's sad. And yes, especially I think the other side of that coin is, when you transport all that culture and those upbringings to a place like the
Yeah,
US or
yeah.
a Western country, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because and it's not a bad thing necessarily. There are some parts that are good, there are some parts that are bad, like everything in life.
Mm,
But it's
I'll let
like
you talk.
but it's like, I remember it's like when we came here, it's like, okay, we have to find our Ghanaian community here, and so that you're like reinforcing your culture but in a different place, like you're trying to hold on to it so badly. Meanwhile, you're not really thinking about, well, maybe some of the things that we brought over, we can leave behind. We don't need to
I
do things
agree.
a certain,
Yeah.
we don't really do that kind of critical thinking. We just just get here and it's like this, that we need our community, we need to be surrounded by people who are just like us. And so it's like, so that mentality of, oh, okay, the boys can just go find a job, but then your wife will take care of the home kind of thing, you bring that with you. And let's be fair, that's similar thinking in the US. A lot of people do that here too, but it just feels so like exponentially difficult because you are literally coming from a different country. You have the opportunity to do things differently.
It's just
right?
100%.
And yet you choose to do the same things. You choose to raise your children the same way. You choose to let the culture drive your decision making instead of like trying to customize a better and new life for yourselves in this environment, So there's a lot that's very complex, and it's I have a lot of compassion though for people like my parents who bring their kids over, and it's like you want to protect them from like a lot of what's happening in this new environment. And so the way in which you think to do that is to reinforce the values that you initiated back home, but sometimes that can be detrimental to the kids. So
it definitely is. And also the thing is, I think on one episode I had with Francis, what I was talking about, we touched on raising children, is we come from a third world country. Those values of third world country and our kids being, whether you were born here or the way you came as a young person, you adapt to your environment, your new environment. And this is a rich country beyond our wildest dreams, but between you and your parents and us, it's just like, oh my God. So bring those values here. It's very difficult because like you go to school, there's kids who are wearing Louis Vuittons and you're looking at yourself like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I have Louis Vuittons? Or they are wearing Guess or whatever designs that they are wearing, but you go home and then without even understanding what's going on with you, our parents, as parents, we're expecting for you to understand as well that, okay, you have to abide by this. You have to. It's just now that I'm raising my daughter and my son, I'm trying to understand like her emotions and everything else, because even aside from boys, we're taught to be tough too as girls. You shouldn't be crying. You should be showing all your emotions. It was tough for me to actually see my ex-partner cry when we were going through a separation. And I had never seen him cry. So during our separation, I process things later. He was already processing as we were going in the moment. So he's experiencing his emotions. I'm just like, why are you crying? So I was not used to that. And he's also an immigrant. He was like this macho guy, and just like not even macho, it's just like tough exterior that he was also taught the same kind of thing, even though we come from two different worlds. Like he's Ukrainian, and they also have that toughness, because even when I started dating him, they were like, oh my God, those guys are very tough. Blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, he's a human being at the end of the day.
It is very interesting. I mean, the reason I always keep coming back to kids is because of my therapy, and because of like the level of understanding that I'm now starting to have about what my upbringing was really like for me and how it's affected me to this day. And I think about it because, and I try to empathize with my parents as well. It's not like I'm just trying to bash on them for all,
No, of course
not, but it's one of those things where, I see myself as a kid, and I see like the issues that I'm having as a kid. And first of all, we're not very good communicators, at least from a parents to child level, right? In our culture, not very good at that.
I agree.
At all.
Everything is what I say.
Yeah, exactly. You do what you're told and everything that I say, and why are you talking back to me and all this sort
Yeah.
of thing. And that, again, it's that like I need to maintain authority here, otherwise my kids will run wild mentality.
Yeah.
And I just don't think we've learned a better way, to just be able to explain and to talk to our children almost like adults. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Yes, there's also a lot of risk because, once your kids start to think and talk like adults, they also become more independent and assertive and everything like that. But you want that, right? And you just have to nurture and cultivate that to, make the right decisions and stuff like that, and so
Yeah.
but it's about being consistent and also being like honest and present because
Mm.
I have a child now too. He's just 1 years old.
I was about to ask you, I'm like, did you come to this space or this
Mm,
journey because you just had your son, or did you start this prior or during pregnancy?
I think I started this prior. I mean, I think I have a really like I'm really more intentional about it now because I have a son.
Yeah.
But I've always been thinking like this, like as long as I've been able to like live on my own and have independence and be assertive, I've always kind of thought about like when I become a father, what kind of father do I want to be? Because
Mm.
I know the kind of upbringing that I had, and I
Yeah.
know the kinds of trials and challenges that I went through. And I don't want anybody to have to deal with that. And
Yeah.
especially not my son, because again, to me, the idea of I want to make life easier and better for the next generation, for my children,
Yeah.
to me, that means not burdening them with the issues that I had to grow up with, right? So
1,000%. Yeah.
when we talk about our parents immigrating to another country, you talk about like their issues are completely on a different level than their kid coming to them and saying, "Hey, I want a Gucci shirt," and so to them, their reaction is like, "Oh, get out of here!" Like, you think we have money for that kind of thing? Like, I'm
Yep.
trying to pay the bills. I'm trying to, we're in this new country. I'm trying to sort things out, and you're coming about and whatever. So your problems are inconsequential. So, I mean, that's the way that they typically handle it, but maybe it doesn't need to be
But it's
that
the
way.
truth. And the thing
It's
is,
it's the
it,
truth, but you don't have to
it's
handle it
the
like that.
truth. Yes, it's the truth, and I agree with you completely. Like the way our parents handle things. Trust me, I'm working on myself to like right because my daughter. Oh my God.
Listen, and I don't pretend to know because my kid is just one and I only have the one. So I'm
Wait for
sure
it.
the older they are, the more they test you. So,
Wait
right
for
now
it.
I'm very optimistic. I'm very happy. I'm sure you ask me the same question in 5, 10 years. I'm going to be very like,
Listen, we laugh, but this is so serious and it's relevant to talk about. Our culture does shape us, whether we like it or not. It does shape us, and it's when we come to these countries, it's important to acknowledge the type of environment our kids are, and for us who are creating lives here with babies and that are born here, we have to change the way we parent. That's just the bottom line. We have to change the way we parent, and for any issues that we might have, like any trauma, I applaud you
Thank you.
because for men, I think a lot of men out there have a lot of pride. I'm sorry, Ben, but I just have to say it out.
Yeah.
You have a lot of pride in then some of that of what you have either goes to other people that don't deserve it because you didn't deal with what you went through as a child, with anybody. So I truly, truly applaud you for sharing because whew, it's a lot to actually call that out. It's a lot. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
No, I agree with you 100%. My greatest wish and my sincerest hope for any of the guys listening to this, or just everybody in general, all kinds of immigrants, moms, dads, women, guy, it's the important thing to remember is that what you are ultimately doing is trying to create a better life for yourself and for the people that you support, whether it's children or family, anybody. There are lots of people who are out here in a new environment, with very little support and help themselves, who are trying to take care of family back home and stuff like that. So, the important thing to remember is that you are trying to create a better life for yourself and those that surround you. And one of the best ways to do that is not with a heavy hand, but with an open heart, right? And that
I
just
love
means,
that.
yeah, it just means, like, as hard as things get, just continuing to look forward, continuing to hold that optimism, that strength of hope, and that belief that you can get there, you can do it. And it's just going to be so much better once you get there and you're looking back like, yeah, I went through a lot. And there were times when I was at my worst, but they just made me stronger to get here. And also my children are going to benefit from this. One of the things that I want to touch on really quickly is just,
No, of course.
This idea of the conversations that we have amongst ourselves and also with our children and the next generation is, we have an opportunity to do things differently, right? And to talk about the things that most people don't want to talk about because it's uncomfortable and it feels very hard. But the thing that we're lacking is the foresight of how beneficial it could be for their general well-being, for the kinds of relationships that they'll be developing with others, right?
Yeah.
And just even things as simple as, like, talk to your kids about the money, about the money situation. Like one of the biggest hardships that we all face, especially as immigrants in a new country, is money, and like how you're struggling to make it, and how very thin it is to go around for all the needs. And if you've got kids that you're trying to support, you got to talk to them about that hardship, right? Because you need them to be on board with, like, the decisions you're making, and with the understanding that, okay, maybe this month we're not going to buy as many clothes for you or something like that, or we're not going to buy as many toys or games or whatever because it's tight right now. And so if you're able to have those conversations with your kids, then they become a part of the solution. They don't stress you out as much with their requests. And also maybe they might say, what can I do, as little as I am, or whatever.
Oh my God.
You got to bring them along for the journey and start having these real conversations, and not just create a wall like, I'm the parent, I make the rules and you just have to listen. Like, we need to end that. It's over.
Yeah, I agree with you. You just touched on something that I recently talked to my daughter about, because every time we go out, she wants A, B, C, and D. Because normally when she helps me clean, I'll give her $1, or to watch her brother maybe in their room playing, I would give her like a $2 or something. I give her some type of allowance.
Yeah.
So I told her, listen, this is the list of things that I need to pay for. Because every time we go to the store, I start to get irritated. I didn't want to lash out on my daughter. Because again, trying to be conscious with how I parent. You can't be lashing out on kids.
Yeah.
It's not that problem that you don't have enough. So I sat down with her. These are the bills that I have to pay, and some months we have enough so we can buy a toy here and there, and some months we don't have that much. And she actually started, she's like, oh, mommy, I have $30. Do you want me to take you to do nails?
Look at that. Oh.
And it was so touching. I'm like, no, keep your money. Maybe one day we can go and I think it's important to have those conversations. And I just did it from now. I'm like, you know what? Instead of me getting frustrated with my daughter or myself that I don't have enough for me to continue to buy these things, let me have a conversation with her. And she was very welcoming and understanding of it.
Yeah.
And she just goes, oh, mommy, it's okay. You don't have to pay me. I'll watch my brother.
Yeah. And what you're teaching her there is something so valuable that we rarely talk about with our children or with anybody. It's just this idea. You're starting what is basically financial literacy, right?
Yeah.
And it's this idea of the value of money, and like, you know, sometimes you need to save, sometimes you can spend, you know, and sometimes you like invested in something. And so,
Yeah.
you know, you think about your current situation and how you feel financially, and
Yeah.
most people would say, I'm just like, I'm you know, I'm paying the bills, or I'm like paycheck to paycheck. Like I don't feel rich, I don't feel wealthy, I don't feel like I can take a vacation or whatever like that. But it doesn't have to be that way for your kids if you start having the right kind of conversations with them,
Yeah.
right? Because then they get that mentality really early on, and they start to adopt practices that, you know, they'll exceed you. And so you might find yourself in a situation where, because you taught your kids these things very early on, they go on to be very successful, and then like they can take care of you. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the hope anyway, right? So,
Yeah. And
you
even
know,
now, like when I was telling you prior to us talking, she would say, "Oh, I want to be an actress so I can buy you a house. I can buy you
aw.
this. I can." So she's already having that mentality. It's like, I can take care of my mom because, you know, she doesn't have enough right now. She doesn't, but I wanted to be honest with her. Like, regardless of
Mhm,
what it is, I'm going to be honest with you. This is where we are,
mhm.
but it's not going to be always be like this. Things are going
Yeah.
to change. And just being, you know, hopeful together, and every day says, "Oh, we can go to the movies today." Yes. So there's also that excitement of when we're able to do something together. It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
mommy, you have enough money to us to go to the movies." So like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's go.
And it becomes special.
Yes. And like when
Yeah.
it's just used to it, it's just like, okay, movies. We can
Hmm.
go to the movies.
Hmm.
But the goal for me was just to be honest with her and just, this is how it is. This is what it is right now. And then we'll just, it's not going to be always be like this, but right now this is where we are.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. I love that.
Yeah. Um, so what are you working on that people can, you know, follow, can do? I know I mentioned what you do, but just let us know what you do so we can support.
Oh man, I'm doing so many different things, and I probably need to focus and narrow in on it, right? But I'll tell you the thing that I'm most interested in right now. I mean, uh, I'm a creative, and I love telling stories, as you said in the intro. I mean, I help people, whether it's entrepreneurs or small business owners, like tell their business stories or their professional stories in one
Yeah.
way, shape, or form. And you know, sometimes what that could be is like we do a photo shoot, or we take new headshots so that they can send out resumes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Or it's like building a website to tell their story, or like what they're trying to do. Or it's like making videos. And so I love to have my hands immersed in all those different kinds of things creatively, and to give people direction and like really be strategic about it. Because, you know, what's the saying? It's like, you know, the when one person rises, we all rise together, sort of thing. So
100%. Yeah.
I'm all about helping people like improve their circumstances through professional development and also personal development. So you know, you can find me on my website. Just go to richardhackman.com. I'm also on social media, mostly Instagram. Uh, my handle is hackman.rich. And you know, you're just gonna find a lot of messaging right now, just about like living your life the
Yeah.
best that you can, you know,
Yeah.
because that's where I am right now. I believe first you sort of have to heal the person, and then you can start to address their needs, right? And so
Yeah.
you'll find a lot of messaging about that, and a lot of like resources, especially like on my website, for like past work that I've done that I could use to help other people.
Mm.
So if you're interested in that, you know, feel free, hit me send me a message. But otherwise, I'm looking to build my network and get to know new people, especially like other fellow immigrants, people who have been through it. You know, we have some of the most interesting stories, so I want to hear those stories.
100%. Yes.
You know, I want to tell those stories. So
I
yeah.
have I'll have all of your social media and your contacts in the show notes once we post
Perfect.
the episode. But I can talk to you forever, and I can talk to you about everything and anything. Um, what do you live by?
What do I live by?
Yeah. What gets you motivated?
I think what keeps me motivated, what I live by, is just being true to yourself, you know,
Mm,
being true to yourself. I think the when I realized that, because when I was younger, I made a lot of excuses and I told a lot of lies, and it was a defense mechanism. It was a way to get by, and to blend in, and the moment that I started just telling the truth, being transparent, and presenting myself completely as I am and not being shameful for
yeah,
what I have or haven't done or accomplished or who I am or who I'm not. The moment I stopped doing all of that, like I felt my life just become so much better and like a burden lifted and like I started to attract the right people into my life,
nice.
to help me and support me and to keep me moving forward. So yeah, just
It's
be
so
true to yourself.
freeing. It's so freeing.
Yeah.
Like I love that. I love that. At this point in your life, you've been here how long now in the US?
Oh, in the US, almost about, it's like half my life, so about 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, oh, like me, this year is going to be 20 years. So,
Yeah.
would you say you found your concrete pastures?
Ah, have I found my concrete pastures? Yes, but
Mhm.
I'll add a little to that. So, New York, coming to the US, if it had not happened, I don't really know what my life would be like. And I don't know whether I would be content with the life that I had. I mean, obviously you make the most of whatever life you're given,
Yeah.
but I think coming to New York and to the US created an opportunity and a shift in the dynamic of not just my family, but the relationship that I had with myself and the level of openness that I was able to achieve in my mind and in my emotions, in my spirit, that it was because of this environment that I was able to make this shift in who I am and in what I'm doing. Um, and not to say that that couldn't have happened anywhere else, but I think just if you know anything about New York, you just know that it's a melting pot. And it's the
Yes.
thing that they say about it is if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere,
And it's the
right?
truth, I think.
Yeah, so I definitely think that I found my concrete pastures, but part of that is also having the ability to go between here and Ghana as and when I choose, and having that balance is really key to who I am. So yes.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Anything you want to leave for anybody out there that has been is in your shoes, maybe where you used to be, and dealing with something, what advice would you give them? Going through their own trauma, maybe they're scared to go to talk to someone, being that they are male, they are, you know, Black,
Mm-hmm.
and they have the stigma of their culture as
Yeah,
how they don't want to be judged or anything. Because even with your partner, sometimes we do judge. And I've been
oh,
to that place where
absolutely.
I'm like, okay, you're a man, man up. But
Yeah.
I've learned it's like we're all human beings, the same thing that, uh, I go through, you guys also go through.
Yeah. Yeah, what I will say is you are not alone, right? Anything that you are going through, I guarantee you, someone has been through it or is also going through it. So you are not alone in that sense. And so what you need to realize is that maybe you are in a space, an environment, or surrounded by people that are not benefiting you in that moment. And so you need to be able to have the courage to step out of that and find the people who you resonate with, because it's only then that you can start to explore the challenges that you're facing in a safe environment to then be able to resolve them. Otherwise, you get locked into this closed-mindedness, you get locked into the problems that you're dealing with, you get locked into the personality that you are. Meanwhile, you want to grow, you want to keep pushing forward, you want to be a beacon of light for not just yourself but other people. And so you need to take a serious look around you. Who's helping me, who's not, and make some serious choices about what you need in your life, who you need in your life, and who you need to let go and what you need to let go of, and move forward.
Thank you for that. Yusa, I appreciate you so much for being here. We can talk forever. Your story is beautiful and powerful. So many people, I know for sure, are going to resonate with your story and everything else that we've been able to discuss here. So I appreciate you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I mean, you are doing a service to this community. And yeah, I hope as many people keep following you, keep checking out what you're doing, and really take to heart some of the things that people are saying on your podcast. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.